Well, hi there, class. Welcome to TS751, an elective on the Trinity. In this presentation, I'll be taking you through an introduction to the class and the syllabus. If you have any questions about any of this material, please feel free to email me. My email will be located in the slides. So, let's get started. Let's meet who I am, your instructor. My name is Benjamin Rhodes. You can call me Ben, that's fine. I've lived in Minneapolis for since 1999, so about 24 years now. I've really enjoyed it here. I grew up in the Deep South and grew up in a Christian home, went to a Baptist church, and that Baptist church was very anti-intellectual, and that was never me. In college, I started to rub elbows with some seminary professors. It just really opened my eyes to the world of theology and biblical studies. And I just realized that I'd always had a passion for spiritual growth and transformation and how theology can play a role in that. And I've kind of spent my time as a really advanced hobby or avocation trying to figure out how to make that a reality in the way that I spend my time. You can contact me via email. That's the best way to get a hold of me at b-rhodes@bethel.edu. One of your assignments for this week is to reach out to me at that email address, introduce yourself very briefly, and just check in for the course. Let's talk about the course for a bit. What are our course goals? Well, there's really two categories here of what we can and what we can't do. The Trinity is an extremely advanced and potentially complicated topic. Academics have spent their entire career researching, writing, and really explaining what's going on in Trinitarian doctrine. We're only going to be able to scratch the surface of that. So what can we do in this course, given how deep and wide the topic actually is? Well, first, we can develop a framework for Trinitarian doctrine that can be used as a starting point. One of your jobs as a master's student is not to be able to formulate the next great doctrine of the Trinity, although you might be able to do that. But one of your jobs is to be able to discuss complex topics and integrate them with other topics in ways that are helpful. And so that's one of the things we're going to try to do here, to develop a framework by which you can start putting Trinitarian doctrines in conversations with each other. We'll be able to explore the historical development of the doctrine of the Trinity. It's very important. The Trinitarian doctrine came out of a very specific time and place, and we'll explore what sort of challenges and what sort of advances were made and why those were made. We're going to interact with other frameworks and evaluate their potential. That's one of the big assignments that's going to happen in this course, and so we'll be talking about that here in a bit. And we're going to provide a starting point for future exploration. Like I said, we'll only be able to scratch the surface, but I do want to prepare you for being able to do research on your own to, discover what modern trends are in Trinitarian thinking, how to really navigate these from a faith perspective, and how to update sort of how things are taught and done at your church in a way that's responsive to their context and in a way that keeps us in dialogue with the saints, right, with the faith handed down to us. Here's what we can't do. We can't trace the entire trajectory of Trinitarian development. It's just too deep and wide, starting from proto-Trinitarian developments prior to the Council of Nicaea, all the way through medieval frameworks, all the way into modern times, the ups and downs of all that. We just can't do all of that, and we just can't explore all of the frameworks for Trinitarian doctrine. The psychological framework, the social framework, and on and on. We're not going to be able to unpack all of those, but we'll touch on them, and we'll significantly focus on the social doctrine of the Trinity, which is the one that's most prevalent in modern times. We can't solve the Trinity for use in faith life. The Trinity, as we'll discover in our coursework, the Trinity is personal and relational, and so it is essentially those things, which means that it can't be reduced to checklists, frameworks, just doctrinal statements. It's much, much more sophisticated than that. Just like you can't boil the relationship with your best friend or with your spouse or even with your children down to a checklist, you can't boil the relationship with the Trinity down to a checklist either. So we're not going to be able to do that. So how are we going to structure this course? Well, the course materials are available on Moodle, so you can get there by going to mybethel.edu, clicking on Tools and Resources, clicking on Moodle, and then this course number TS571. Moodle will be the place in which you'll need to check every week for assignments, what's due, what's available, where to find resources. In addition to that, the Moodle page also has the syllabus, and the syllabus is the guide to the course. So if you have any questions about how anything works, you can read through the syllabus to figure that out. Please do that. Please download, read, and understand the syllabus. It's got a lot of great information there, including the rubric that I use to grade the course and exactly what's expected from you in things like forum interactions and in the final paper for the course. Each week of the course has an assignment or a series of assignments. I've categorized this as read, watch, listen. So you need to do the readings, you need to watch and listen to the lectures. Those things are due every week that we have in this course. You want to participate. You are required to participate in 5 weekly forums throughout the course. I'll talk a little more about that later. And then there's also submit. These are the things that you're going to need to turn in, and I expect that you turn in these things on time. The syllabus describes what happens if you don't turn it in on time, and I'll leave it to you to look at that. The course textbooks. The primary textbook for this course, I've chosen God for Us by Catherine Lacuna. I believe you'll need a physical copy of this, but if you have an electronic copy, that's okay as well. You'll need that, and then there'll also be some supplemental texts. Again, I believe that these are primarily available as physical copies, but if you can get a hold of an e-copy, that would be okay. You'll need The Deep Things of God by Fred Sanders and The Quest for the Trinity by Stephen Holmes. There's a number of other supplemental texts. These do not mean optional. You are also required to read these texts. But these are available as electronic resources. I've made sure that those have been reserved through a variety of means or just straight up available on the Moodle site as a PDF download. You can see the syllabus or you can see Moodle for details about how to get these electronic resources. This is a course that is reading heavy. I believe at least it's reading heavy. So please commit yourself to the reading. I think that you'll really enjoy it once you get into the cadence of it, and it'll really help you build that framework for Trinitarian doctrine that you can use to in faith life, in ministry, and probably most importantly in the final project. Forum participation. I believe that most of the online Bethel courses require forum participation, but you're required to participate in 5 weekly forums throughout the course. 2 of those weeks, you must post a response to the initial prompt. So for every week of the course, I've developed a forum prompt. You will need to respond as a top-level response to that forum prompt. So that needs to happen in 2 of your 5 weeks. In 2 of those weeks, you must post a response to at least 2 other students within the forum. So let's say that I post an initial response to the forum post. John, let's say, would need to go in and post a reply to my initial response to start the dialogue. A single week cannot count as both an initial response and a response to a fellow student. So you'll need to do 5 separate weeks of interaction on the forum. You're required to participate on weeks 1, 4, and 8. So in those responses, you need to make sure you're carving out time in your schedule to actually go in and respond to the forum prompt. All the other weeks are optional, but you do have to hit that magic mark of 5 to get top grades for forum participation. All the forums open on Wednesday, early Wednesday morning, basically, 12:01 a.m., so right after midnight, and they close on Monday, basically at midnight. So you have pretty much a full week to interact with the forum responses. My request is that if you're going to provide a top-level response, so an initial response to the prompt, that you please do that by Friday. That ensures that those who want to give their responses to you have plenty of time to read your initial post and to formulate a response that's substantive. And that brings us to our final point. All the responses that you give must be substantial. So what do I mean by that? Again, the syllabus is your master guide for all this. Everything that I'm talking about is discussed in more complete detail in the syllabus. Highly encourage you to go and read that. But if you're going to do an initial prompt, substantial participation is substantial with obvious connections to the assigned material, 1 paragraph minimum, and explicit reflection of new insights, integration, and application to ministry and/or spiritual formation, minimum 1 paragraph. Strong posts will integrate at least a quote from the assigned texts, and be a minimum of 250 words long. Do not exceed 500 words. I don't want this to be super long. 250 words is about a double-spaced page, and so really your initial forum post should not be more than 2 double-spaced pages if you're doing it at 12-point font in Word, for instance. What I want to see in these initial prompts is that you really understood the prompt, that you are integrating the question and the prompt with the reading material that you've had for the week, and that you're extending that one step further. You're really trying to take that and move it into the next step, move the ball along. New insights, integration, application to ministry, stuff like that. So that's what I'm looking for there. When you respond to someone else, I want to see an understanding of at least a portion of the original post, an expansion of the discussion, additional commentary, research, or personal experience that illustrates the idea and gives it forward motion. No points will be given for trivial follow-ups like, good idea, Fred, even if it's several sentences saying how you liked or agreed with the poster's ideas. And what I also want to see is a logical way for others to join in with the conversation. So it needs to be open-ended enough to not stop the discussion. What I want to see here is that you've understood what the initial poster put in there, and that you're trying to expand upon that. You're trying to take that next step in. That could be a critical evaluation of it, but really I hope that what you're trying to do is move the ball down. Like, that is a good idea, and here's how I see it playing out. How would you see it, playing out in a children's ministry, for instance, or in a work environment, these sorts of things. So that's what I'm looking for in substantial forum participation. There will be 2 vocabulary quizzes that will happen during the course. The terms for those vocab quizzes will be posted on Moodle, and the answers will be free form, so this won't be a multiple choice test. And honestly, there's not going to be very many vocabulary words. I think that there's going to be maybe 10 in the entire course. So what I want to see is that you understand what the terms mean and you can describe them in your own words. This doesn't have to be a regurgitation of the text, of what you read in the text, but it does have to be complete and thoughtful. No outside resources will be allowed as you're filling in these quizzes. So please know the terms and be familiar with them as you walk into the quiz. And finally, the final interaction paper. So what I mostly want to have happen in this course is for you to understand a social Trinitarian framework and understand how to compare it and contrast it with other Trinitarian frameworks that you're going to encounter. As someone who's not a minister, I am not a pastor of a church, I am a teacher though, I encounter a lot of people who have ideas about Trinitarian doctrine. They've read a new book and they're able to articulate what the Trinitarian formulation is in that book. What I like to be able to do, and what I want you as potential future ministers to be able to do, is to be able to listen to that and be able to compare it and contrast it with orthodox teachings, so that you can determine what's heterodox, what might be dangerous, what might be really beneficial, in order to guide and minister to the people who are bringing new frameworks to you. So what I want you to do is, after reading all the coursework, I want you to choose a book on the Trinity to read on your own. So what does this book need to be? Well, it cannot be a summary book or a primer. I have one here that I'll try to hold up to the camera. So for instance, there is a book by Roger Olson called The Trinity. This is a primer. This just describes various doctrines of the Trinity and does not create its own framework at all. Primers, like 2 Views on the Trinity, 4 Essays on the Trinity, an Introduction to the Trinity, these sort of books are not what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is sort of an academic treatment of the Trinity that develops a fresh Trinitarian framework. And there are a lot of these floating around in modern times. So we have Rahner and Pannenberg, T.F. Torres, Moltmann, whose book that I have here. So Moltmann's The Trinity and the Kingdom proposes a fresh Trinitarian framework. Sarah Croakley has a book called God, Sexuality, and the Self, an essay on the Trinity, in which she develops a framework of the Trinity centered on sexual ethics. There are others as well. Augustine, of course, developed a fresh doctrine of the Trinity. Even though it's old, it's still considered his own and fresh from his perspective. You can do that. Tonstad, Wolff, Miroslav Wolff has written a book on the Trinity where he develops his own framework. What I expect is for you to find a book like that so that you can interact with in your final paper. On about week 4, I believe, your proposal for what book you're going to select is due to me, so I can look it over and make sure that you're going to hit the mark on that. So please start looking for that book early. As part of the final interaction paper as well, you'll need to put the Trinitarian framework from your book into interaction with the framework that we developed through the coursework, Primary Lacuna Social Trinitarian Framework. So you need to highlight points of correspondence and difference between Lacuna's work and the book that you've picked, and talk about why they matter. What difference does that make in the church? Are they largely heterodox or are they orthodox? What are the advantages and disadvantages of each? So I want you to really walk through that, describe that, and really give me a robust interaction with how all this stuff works. All right. So I think that walks us through the syllabus good enough. My goal with these videos is to post at least one a week, hopefully 2, maybe 3. And my goal is also to keep all of them to about 20 minutes or less. At this point, I think that we've only done about 15 or 16 minutes. I think that that's a really great start to the course. So I'm so looking forward to having you guys in the course with me, and looking forward to seeing where it goes from there. So have a great one.